When you first open up After Effects, this is what it looks like. I remember the first time I opened it up and didn't really know what to make of this. So don't be intimidated. I'm just going to show you what these different things are at this point. So this window is our project window, and if like Adobe Premiere, this is where we are going to populate the window with our clips, and you can bring in all sorts of stuff. You could bring in stills and videos and audio and a variety of different things. This is your composition window, and notice when I click on them they have this blue line around it, and that blue line lets you know which one is active, because depending on what is active will impact how some of these things are exposed on the right hand side here. This right here is going to change according to what window is selected. So you see this window says workspace. By default it's on standard, but let's say you were doing just something about text. Then you'll see like the character pops up as an option on these sides here, where you can change the fonts, you can change all this other stuff as well. So if I selected, let's say under workspace, I'm going to do some effects work. Here it shows all the effects that are available to me and that sort of stuff. We'll get more into that later on, but I'm just kind of showing, introducing the various things about After Effects. Down here is our timeline. Okay, and so once we actually start building stuff, this is where the timeline is going to exist. I'm going to go into this basic workspace right now, which is standard. Sorry. And the first thing I want to do also is show you that inside here we have effect controls and project. Down here we have render queue and then the name of a project, which doesn't happen yet. So what I want to do is I'm going to first go under composition and say new composition. That brings up this composition window here. In this composition window I'm going to just call it first comp. And notice here's where it's really important at this point to identify the size of the project that you ultimately want to have. Let's say you brought in a JPEG that was some unusual size. Well, if it's going to be for television, then you want to work in a television formatted size, and I'd like to work in 1920 by 1080. And if you click on where it says custom here, you'll see all kinds of pre-built settings here if you're doing it for web video or NTSC DV and all these other things here for now. The closest thing to the one that we just selected here is the closest one we're going to find here is going to be HDTV 1080 by 24. And so here you'll see that it's 1920 by 1080 and the frame rate is 24 frames per second. Now I actually want to make it more accurate, so I wanted to make it 23976. It isn't going to change anything really except the way the numbers are counted, and this is really truthfully more what 24p is on the cameras that we work with. So I'm going to select that. Notice that changes this to custom. And here I can also change some other things about the resolution that I'm working in. We'll be talking more about that later. For now I'm going to leave these as default, and then we say OK. And now notice we have in our project window it says first comp. Alright, so here is my comp, and there's nothing in it at the moment. Alright, and if I change the size of this comp, so here you can see the whole thing. So when we look at this interface now, this is where we're going to be looking at our project as we build it. This is going to be our timeline, and I'm going to work through eventually what all these things are. All these things have meaning, and you'll need to know what they are, but we'll take it one step at a time. For now, let's get some media in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, Import, and I am going to import a file, and you have these other things that you can bring in, and I'm just going to navigate to, I have some pictures of, let's see here, what was I going to select? This one thing I was going to select is Slap. It's kind of funny, it's Batman. Notice it's a JPEG, okay? And that JPEG, each one of these things have a different icon. So a movie has a certain thing, an image has a certain thing. And so what you want to do is you could do it one of two ways. You click on the object that you've brought in, and then you can drag it right to the picture in your composition window, and there you have it. Now notice that it also put the on the timeline, it put the slap JPEG there as well, so it's in here, and we already can have it. Now we can change the size of it if we want to make it full frame, or we can do whatever we want with it from there. But it's that easy. Now I'm going to undo that, Control Z, and what I'm going to do here is just another thing that I can do is I could just drop it right in the timeline over here. But notice that over here it's now, there's nothing at the beginning here. So here's my playhead, and I can drag this back and forth, and once it hits there you can see that there's our Batman slapping Robin in the face, and kind of like that. Alright, and so here we've got an image. Let's say I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And now this is the crux of After Effects. Let's go ahead and bring in a movie now. So I'm going to Control click or right click depending on what you're using, another file. And let's go to my movie folder, and I'm going to pull in this clutter footage right here. So notice here that this has got a QuickTime movie. Alright, so this clutter, I'm going to just bring it in and drop it anywhere in the timeline there. And you can see though that it's very small, and because this is an HD video and this is standard definition video. So if you want to know how much better or bigger an HD file is, this is a good representation of what standard def is and then what HD is. So this is 1920 by 1080, and this is 720 by 480. So I'm going to show you a couple of things here for now, but right now I want to just show you how to get things in the timeline. So if I drag, I'm clicking and dragging this. If I hold in the Shift button, it's going to snap right to where these two places meet, so there's no black space in between it there. There isn't a black space, but you can kind of see that there's a little bit of the video goes black, so that overlap there. But I want to make this video bigger. I want this to be full frame, and you can do it a bunch of different ways. You can just drag it, and then I can make it full frame. Now this is something that it doesn't really matter if it gets grainy. Okay, and what I want you to know here also is that this green line here represents something called pre-render. If you recall, I had mentioned that this is not an editing program. Okay, so if you were to hit the space bar, which I did just there, it will play it fine if this line is green. But once we start populating the timeline with lots and lots of different elements in here, it's not going to play in real time. There's just not enough memory for that to happen. And so you have to do something called pre-render. And that pre-render lives up here, up in this preview window here. Or if you're working on a full-size keyboard, the 0 on the number pad pre-renders it as opposed to hitting the space bar. If you're working off a laptop, you have to use this preview window. Then it'll play it in real time. Okay, another way to blow this up, so let's undo this so that it goes back to its small size here, is I want to show you, this is where we start to get into things about After Effects and its basic operation. Every one of these things has this little arrow to the side of it here. If I twirl down this arrow, I get this thing that says transform. Twirl down transform, and you get these 5 basic transformations. These are the 5 basic transformations that exist in all of the attributes in the animation capabilities. We'll stop here because this is going to start the next phase.